How's it going, internets? I hope you're having a lovely day. It's that time again. It's time to get into some animation, time to get that imagination cranked up, get into some creativity, and it's time to get inspired. And today's inspiration comes from the wonderful Josh Kirby. If you're not familiar with his work, check right over here. He is probably most well known for his association, if I could speak correctly, that would help, with the Discworld series. Terry Pratchett's wonderful, creative, and imaginative fantasy world series that just kind of breaks all boundaries, and I think his art stylings and sensibilities really help to bring that world to life. And you can see that there's a lot of Hiram Bosch influences with those big sprawling images with lots of different characters and features throughout. I love those kind of images myself, especially this one. You can see all the demons crawling out and everything, and I really like one thing I think in this piece particularly that he did well is he has that sense of flow throughout his work. Even though there's so many different details in each and every piece, you can see that if you follow just from the smoke trails right here, that there's a big flow all the way through that then goes into the demons, that then goes back around, and then there's even the way that he laid out the tail right here keeps the eye subtly, it's a pointing arrow to keep the flow all the way back down till you almost get right around here, and here's really the only gap that you're getting in that whole thing where it restarts again. So it's a really beautiful intricate layout that is kind of subtly there just to guide the eye through the piece, and it's just genius, and it's really hard to get that kind of stuff, and it takes a high level of sophistication because not only are you thinking about your design and your anatomy and your perspective and your composition and your colors and everything, but you're trying to make it cohesive so that each piece works together to help the piece as a whole. I think, like I said, it's just genius work. So definitely check out more stuff from him. I will throw a link in the description below. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find too much as far as interviews go, but I was able to find this little tidbit morsel that I thought was really great. He was talking about his influences, and then he said, I try to become more like these whilst contributing my personal viewpoint. And I think that's a great way to look at people that you admire or are kind of your inspiration for your work, is to try and be more like them, but at the same time contributing your own viewpoint. I think that sometimes can get muddied, that you either try to be a carbon copy of the person that you aspire to be, or you're too much of, you don't spend enough time really researching the medium and those people that have gone before you. And I think it's that great blending of finding there's an influence map thing that was going around in, I want to say it was about 2010, and definitely just do a Google search. I think I even have one on the blog if you guys want to check that out too. But talking about the influence map was a cool thing. I think it gave you 14 squares, and then you or 16 squares, and you had to kind of say which artists were your biggest influences and give them a portion of each of the squares. And I thought that was a really cool thing. Again, you'll have to see an image of it to really understand it better, but I think it's important to kind of nail down, I don't know if I'd have an exact number. I think I have 13 that are like my top tier. These are the people that I aspire to be like, or to be in the same category of their work and the way that they kind of live their life and their artistic flow and everything too. But then not only to be like them, but also contribute something to that same medium. So I think I like that he mentions it in that way, because a lot of times you'll just hear like, well, here's my list of people that are my inspirations or anything. But I think it's interesting that he said, I want to be like that, but I also want to contribute to it. And I think for anyone who wants to go further in their art world, you have to think of what is it that you're contributing. And that being said, let's go ahead and get into some animation. This is the low Robo rig. It's a free rig you can grab over at elasolomon.low. Oh, I'm gonna forget it here. Give me 1 second here. elasolomon.topleftpixel.com. Again, I will throw a link in the description below if you guys want to play around with this rig. And if you're not familiar with what we'll be doing for the rest of the video, is we give ourselves 48 frames, give or take a few. I go off and I find a rig that I've never used before. It's a free resource for you guys to play around with as well, and we kind of go from there. A little bit of over the shoulder, hang out with me while I animate, a little bit of talking through the process or something in the creative world in general. But the main goal of these videos is to hopefully encourage you guys and inspire you guys to go off and create something of your own each and every day, using your own influences and your own personal view as well. So that being said, let's go ahead and play around. And for today's video, we are using Autodesk Maya 2015. And how do I want to do this? I think I want to do a lot of twist here. Something I haven't really done. It's just a really shoulder heavy walk, and I think this might be a fun one to try that out on. But let's go the other way with the feet here. I really like the aesthetics of this rig. I think it's a really cute rig, or a really nice style that I like. And we'll twist the hips a little bit that way. Let's do something a little bit different with the hands. Do we have any finger controllers here? Let's see. I guess we can do each one. It's kind of funky how I have it set up. We'll go with it. Is there a tip? I think it's just the two portions. Okay. And I'll grab that. Usually I'm wary about that, but we'll hopefully not breaking the rig too much right now. And we'll drop the thumb a little bit here as well. Okay, and then we'll look at this one. And go a little bit out here. And a little bit in there. Just trying to create something that's a little more interesting for our posing here. And let's go a little bit back there. Drop that thumb a little bit more. Okay. And for right now, let's start with that. I realize it's a pretty rough pose, but I want to get more into movement on this one than necessarily the posing, and figure out how I'm gonna play around with that. So let's make sure we only have our NURB curves, NURB surfaces, and polygons selected. Let's go ahead and grab everything here, and we'll go ahead and set our first key there. Hopefully we're not going to be breaking anything. Let's see. Set our frame range to 48. Let's save our file again real quick here. Let's start building this thing. Here, on this side. We'll bring that back. And again, we'll have to play around with the hips and everything as we go. We're just looking at kind of the spacing on the feet for right now. Let's see. Okay, now let's look at the hip. Add some twist there. Get that working. Okay, and let's look here. I think I want to go more there, and then back here, there, and then back again. Let's see. we still have lots to do. And just something to mix it up here. I'll go up on the passing position. I'll make sure I'm grabbing the right controller here. Go up on the passing position. And down there. Up here. And down there. Up here. And down there. And up here. And then back again. Okay, yeah, let's clean that up a little bit more. Even it out a little bit better. And bring the originals down a little bit more here. Let's see. Okay, we're going to have to lower it more though, because as you see the feet aren't actually planting on the ground completely, so they're lifting off, which I want to keep them flat on the ground, which means we're only going to be able to go about that high off there. Okay, and then I want to go up here, and then down there, and up here, and down there, and up here, and down there, and up here, and back again. Okay, let's clean that up a bit more. Probably do a little bit less of it as well, and bring the originals down a little bit here. Let's see. Alright, let's start looking at the feet a little bit more. So I'm just going to go in, I'll grab both of them again, and lock in all the main keys that we have right now so we don't lose any information here, and let's start building these passing positions. So we'll go up here, down, up here, and down. I'll go the other one. And I am going to play around with these a little bit more because I want them to feel heavier, and I also want them to plant a little bit lower. So I'm going to take the translate Y's and cut them down by a frame on each side. And same here. Translate Y's and shorten them up a frame. And we might even do another frame or two here. So let's see. I don't think that's the right approach. Let's try that again. So I think what we want to do is hold the back down 3 frames. 1, 2, 3. So don't lift the foot up for 3 more frames. No, because then it's sliding forward. How about I just... I'm not going to do that. So what I want to do is delay this for 3 more frames. I think. Maybe like 2 more frames. want to take, then what would it be? There. You take everything here, move it to 3, right? Something like that. I'll move it to 3, and then we'll take 24, make that our base here. Bring that there. Let's see how that feels. Still needs some tweaking, or at least it's keeping that foot planted a little bit more. Let's try this now. Let's take 12 and move that back 2 frames to 14. And this will move it back 2 frames to 38. Starting to feel a little better. Makes those feet feel a little bit heavier too. And then let's take all of the translate Y's here. And let's push them over a frame. So a little more even. If anything, we'd probably push them forward a frame too. So we kept them on the ground a little bit longer so that the steps are going to not be as slow. I'm just going to keep the weight focused on the ground a little bit more. And then another thing that we can do to increase the heaviness is to lift them up a little bit higher as well. I think that's what we'll leave them for right now. Let's do a little bit of rotate though. Here, so we're gonna rotate it back there, flatten it out, and rotate it back there. Actually, let's do that a different way. What have we got? It's 9 frames, so let's go 3 frames in, we'll drag it back, 2 frames, lift it forward. So 3 frames, drag it back, 2 frames, lift it forward. And that'll help give that stomp. Okay. And let's clean that up a little bit between the 2 sides. It's a little more even. And let's look at this guy. And what do we say? 3 frames in, drag it back. And 2 frames from contact, we'll lift it up. 3 frames in, drag it back, 2 frames, lift it up. Let's see. And then now let's start doing a little bit here. So we'll go down there, and then up here. Down here, up there, and again we'll scale this back. This is a little too much for right now, but we'll get there. And back again. Okay, let's look at our translate Y's and clean that up a little bit more. Minimize it a bit as well. Let's see how that plays. We probably need to tweak around the timing of this a little bit more as well. But let's see. Let's go ahead and watch it and see how it feels. Just something that loosens up those hips a little bit more. Actually, it's working okay. I think we could actually do a little more rotate Y as well. So we'll go there. Just have a little more spin in the midsection. I think we could do less rotate Y in the chest. Scale that back a little bit more. Everything's feeling a little too busy right now. Okay, let's look at the toes now. And we'll go ahead and go toe up here. 2 frame. Let's just go 1 frame. We'll zero it out. We'll drag it down at 8. So 5 frames in. Drag it down. Lift it up, and zero it out. Great, let's see how that feels. I think there's a little too much up and down. We're getting a little bit of popping of the feet lifting off the ground, so we're gonna have to scale it back a little bit more. Alright, let's maybe tone that toe down a little bit more. There we go. Maybe we need to bring the total lower a little bit more here. So we're still getting a little bit of that lift off, so it wasn't really in that cog then, it must have been in the main root one. See, right here just lifts a little too much. We need to go something like that to keep those feet planted on the ground. That's better. Okay, and let's look at the toe here. Drag it there. Lift it up there. And zero it out. And we'll drag it there. Lift it up here. Here. And we'll zero it out. Now let's see. Alright, and let's look at the toe again on the side. And so gotta rotates as well. Kind of compare those between the 2 feet. Make sure one's not rotating too much more than the other. That's what I thought. I knew there was one of them that was a little too much. But I think I like it, so I'm gonna grab everything and just push them a little bit higher. Let's see that now. The thing we don't want is I don't want it to intersect through the ground, so might have to scale it back a little bit more. Let's see. Maybe a little bit less drag on the toe overall. They're loose, but I want them to still feel kind of heavy. I feel like I loosen them up too much. So let's scale them back a little bit here. Okay, and I think those work. You can still tweak them a little bit more, but let's do some stuff with the chest. swing forward that way, drag it this way, forward that way, and back again. Actually, let's do it back on 12s again, instead of on the 6. We'll see. Then go back here, forward there. Nice swing going through there. Alright, that's a little better. That's more what I was thinking. And loosen that up even more. I can push it a little bit further. Okay, and let's look at this arm here, and we'll swing it forward there, back there, forward there, back there, and back again. Okay, and let's try to loosen up these elbows a little bit. Break it back a little bit, push it forward there, break it back, push it forward. I want to keep the arms fairly stiff though, but I do want a little bit of swing through there. I think I want to do a little bit less rotate Y, a little bit more up and down. Let's see. Maybe more rotate Y. Let's just keep tweaking it. It's about finding that sweet spot we want to try and find. It's not. I think I'm just getting a little bit just because of that 2-frame end and recycle. I'm getting a little bit of jerkiness that I'm trying to get out of there. And let's go and drag that back. Swing it forward, drag it back, swing it forward, and bring it back again. Now let's look at the head. Let's see, can we do some actual be cool if I could go dip the head actually down. Let's see. Try to see if we can actually get the controller and go down. Go back, take a couple steps back. I was thinking it'd be cool if we can bop the head in and out of the shoulders a little bit. I guess we could just do a little bit of what's this? Node state. Alright, I guess we'll just have to use a little bit of rotate X there. Up, down, up, down. And again, we'll probably minimize this, but I want to try and get a little bit of that built in there if we can. Back again. Okay, let's clean that up a little bit better. just a little bit of looseness in that head. Maybe scale back a little bit less. It's a really cool rig. I do like this rig aesthetically. One of my more favorite aesthetic looking rigs that I've used in a while. Let's swing that forward and bring that back. Bring it forward and bring it back. We'll go back again. Let's see. Probably push them forward a little bit more. Just a little more looseness overall, just a little bit. Okay, and we'll loosen up the wrist here, which I think was X as well. So swing it forward, drag it back, swing it forward, drag it back, and go back again. Just pushing the hips forward a little bit in Z. Just trying to keep them balanced a little bit better if I can. There we go. Balancing a little bit back heavy, just a smidge. And one thing I might do as well is kind of rotate the arms out a little bit. Because they seem to pull in a little bit more than I like. Make sure we duplicate that. Now that we have that little adjustment. Just so that I'm not swinging in too much. Let's see if there's any other fun controllers that they threw in here we can play around with. I guess we could do a little bit of rotate Z here. A little bit of tilt. Tend not to use for more mechanical ones. I don't tend to do that as much. Rotate Z. Just that feels a little more body mechanical than machine. Just a personal thing, I guess. But it can always help a little bit. Just to loosen it up a little bit more. It's pretty close to where I like it. I like that, you know, with mechanical rigs, either really playing them up and making them really like with a lot of human characteristics, or keeping parts of them really rigid. Invert the arms though, even though maybe I should just start them off with rotate Z. Start off a little bit that way. Something like that instead. Again, we're just kind of playing around with these arms, trying something a little bit different today with that. Maybe a little bit less. let's make sure that we balance that out from side to side, that we're not favoring the left side over the right side or anything. Which we're favoring a little bit more up top here. Keep it fairly balanced. Yeah, let's see. Probably do a little bit of rotate as well. Rotate X. Go back. And forth. Back. And forth. Back. Forth. Back. I gotta clean this up. I'm pretty sure I flipped that a little bit too much at one point. Just help loosen up that a little bit more. Let's see. Yeah, that feels pretty cool. A little bit more chaotic in the hips while the rest of it's not feeling so much. And let's do some fingers here. So let's grab all of those. And we'll make sure we, it's going to be rotate X, drag it back there, and swing forward, drag them back, and swing forward, and then go back to where we were at the beginning. Okay, and let's look at the second portions here. Those a little bit here as well. Just try to loosen up the fingers a teeny bit. And then back again. Alright, and then we'll take all of these guys and we'll delay them just one frame. And then we'll take the pinky. As well, and with index, we'll push it forward a frame. Let's see if we like that. And maybe we'll accentuate the index a little bit more, get a little bit better grouping here. Just to get some variety there. Here we could group that one with the back a little bit more. Let's see. Alright, and let's look at the thumb. And we'll pull it in a little bit there. Out a little bit there, in a little bit, and then back again. We should accentuate that a little bit more. Okay, we'll go ahead and save our file, and let's go ahead and look at the other fingers here. And we'll swing forward, and back, forward, back, and back again to where we started. And let's look at the tips. Swing them forward here, and back there, swing it out a little bit more. That one's fine. And we'll go in a little bit here. Just to play around with our grouping of our fingers a little bit more. Yeah, let's look at the middle finger here. And we'll go a little bit less here. A little bit more back there. This one will go there. This one will go there. Right there. Yeah, let's tweak the index a little bit as well. So I think I'll keep them together more there. A little bit more separate there. That's fine. That one, just so we have some variety in our hand poses a little bit more. Okay, and let's go to this thumb. And we'll go ahead and go out there. Start in a little bit more. In a little bit here. Out there. And then back to where we started. Let's see. Alright. I think that works. Fun little low robot walk cycle. So let's turn our curves off and see if we like it. And then let's make sure, we'll go ahead and put them back on here, grab everything, take everything that we have on this last key, and we'll just push it off screen one key, so we get a little bit of variation from the ending pose to when we restart it, and so that'll help the looping. So when it flicks back to the beginning of the cycle, it'll work a little bit better. And let's go ahead and look at that now. Yeah, a little robot walk. Be kind of cool if there was, let's see, let's try turn and see if there's a texture pack that's different on here. No. Okay. So it'd kind of be cool if we did a little bit of different change of color or something on there. That'd be kind of fun. Well, we'll leave it where it is for now. Alright, so let's take a look back at where we started. We're looking at the beautiful work of Josh Kirby. And he said, I try to become more like these whilst contributing my personal viewpoint. So find your influences, find those people that you really appreciate their work and you want to model kind of your career, your stylings in the same vein of, maybe not exactly, but just those people who make you want to work harder and strive to be better. And then try and contribute what you can using your own viewpoint, and that reiterates a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on a daily basis. But I love you guys lots. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for all the likes and subscribes. You guys are amazing. Remember, if you are watching this, that you are the creative future, and I believe in you, and you guys can do it. So keep being awesome, and we will see you for some more animation tomorrow.